Virtual hug to my lovely viewers. Hello there. Hope everybody's having a wonderful time. In today's video, I'm gonna be showing you what I believe to be, at least in my opinion, the easiest opening that you can use to get high accuracy games. I am referring to the Jobava London, or the Jomama London, whatever you wanna call it. This opening is simply deadly, okay? And to give you kind of like a practical guide, I am gonna be walking you through 5 model games that I have played against intermediate players. So without further introduction, let's just dive right into the games. Alright everybody, managed to get into the game. Opponent rated 1400 and we get the 45. I'm gonna start with the knight. Preparing to hopefully get a pretty instructive Jobava game. Get a starting position, what I believe you're gonna be getting in most of your games, and oh dear, we see a wild animal on the board because the bishop lands on g4. I don't know what this bishop is doing on g4 so early. Okay, I mean, it may be a bit annoying for some of you to deal with at first because, well, you cannot play e3, which is kind of like a desired move in the Jobava because that would hang the queen, obviously. But also, knight f3 can take and double up our pawn. So, what is up with that? Well, how about we do a little bit of back engineer of the bishop f5 move, okay, which is very typical. Now, on bishop f5, we always go for f3, which is just setting up a massive pawn store. So, you can pretty much just think of it as a worse version of bishop to f5. This is why I love this opening so much. You can pretty much just transpose from one variation to the other, making it just so easy to learn. Especially if you're a beginner or a stronger player too. I recommend this for stronger players as well. So we're going to be going for f3, targeting their bishop, and I'm just going to start pushing. Look at these pawns. We get a little bit of a nice domino effect, you know, like in the neighborhood when one dog starts to bark, and then all the dogs from the neighborhood starts barking randomly. Kind of like similar. We push all these pawns and then, well, why is this actually so clever, right? It's kind of funny, but is it actually useful? Well, we're going to be able to use these pawns for the attack. So, okay. Typical way to develop, bishop d3, knight e2, long castle. So, we play bishop d3, so we can develop with tempo. This is threatening to take, and then if they ever allow that, it's kind of losing for black because they're going to have a huge weakness. We had many games like that on the channel before. And okay, we see a6 by my opponent, which is a pretty good move. a6 is preparing c5. c5 in a lot of positions is questionable because you can get what I like to call the Excalibur knight by playing knight b5, forcing them to more or less go knight a6 and then c3. Our opponent's going to be like a little bit paralyzed with such knight on b5. Pretty much impossible to get rid of, like something very annoying that's stuck between your teeth, if you still have them. Okay, a6. I'm just gonna go knight e2. Castling long is also fine in that position. I like to be a little bit more flexible. We're gonna play that regardless. It doesn't really matter, but yeah. It's the little things, you know, the little things. So, bishop to d6. Okay, on bishop d6, when you are playing the pawn storm, you always want to be able to take back with a knight. So we already have that. Therefore, we can ignore. And okay, castling is very important. Protecting this rook and then preparing to go g5. That is our main pawn break in the pawn storm. But we really need to have that rook defended because otherwise there will be a problem. After black takes, ideally we want to be able to take back with a pawn, hitting the knight. Okay, look at this. Hitting the knight will be very annoying. Therefore, that is why we keep the pawn on h4. Okay, this is a mistake that a lot of players are kind of making without even realizing. When they have such position, they just get that high dopamine from playing the pawn storm and they just go h5. It's like, okay, but you can very well just play without that move because you will get this extra g5. Okay, critical moment. I can play g5 right away. But I'm a little bit skeptical about knight h5 as a move. Knight h5 I have to take, queen takes, I can play g6. He will probably go f5, then I can play e4. That is playable. Now, the alternative would be to go takes and then knight f4. Basically just trying to stop knight h5. He likely castles long, I go g5, takes, knight d7 expecting him to play. It's a very standard position for the variation. I can go g6, probably something like f6 is pretty standard. Yeah, I think both moves are kind of like equally good here. I feel like I'm gonna go g5 just because not a lot of players are aware of this knight h5, which is the best move. If he doesn't play knight h5, I think he's much worse, maybe borderline losing. He has to play knight h5, kind of trying to cork the champagne bottle. But yeah, he goes to g8, which is definitely kind of bad, as his development has been quite restricted, so to speak. And after g6, typical move, you wanna weaken. And when you go g6, the very next move, you wanna play e4, okay? We soften the e6 guy. After de, can take with a queen. Here, take with a knight. He's just immediately collapsing, okay? Look at this position. Just textbook win. He is pretty much busted no matter what he does. And notice how important it is to throw in this g6, which a lot of players may be kind of underestimating the power of. But okay, still, let's not call it too early, because he played a good move, defending and attacking. Okay, time to put our thinking cap for a little bit. How are we supposed to deal with this? Many tempting moves, okay? You pause the video and let's see what you'd play, okay? Curious how you treat this position. I'm definitely not just farming engagement, so I think it's quite interesting to go 96 here. Because after queen takes ed, that is gonna be a fork, okay? Not only a fork, but it also seems that we're winning a pawn. Yeah, alternatives are just, not that good. You just, they never will be like her. Okay. Just gonna take some e6 and then ed5. There's simply nothing better than that. So, yeah. Also, another reason why this is actually so good is that he cannot bail out. He cannot press the panic button and castle. Simply because the knight was blocking that, and oops, winning back the horse. Rook about to join the battle. This is just total meltdown. He's just completely losing for my opponent. Just gotta bring the pieces. Gotta bring the pieces. When you can bring the pieces with tempo, the kids are happy. The kids are being fed. We got some mouths to be fed here. To feed. Okay. Okay, stop talking nonsense. Okay. Rook e6. Boom. Tempo moves. Now, I really wanted to play this, but I was kind of like a little bit afraid of 97. It's probably just losing in one move, but I am afraid of it for some reason. I would really love to play d5. And guess what? They say to follow your dreams. My dream is to play d5 in this position. So I'm just gonna ignore everybody and play it. Okay, d5. I want to take and I want to open up the position. When king is in the middle, you gotta open it up. Point is, I was afraid of c5, but then I realized, well, there is d6. But okay, he plays knight e7, which was also something that I was kind of eyeballing, but yeah, just in order to keep control on both these pawns, I'm gonna play queen e4, and then yeah, I'm threatening to take. If he pushes, I want to do this. I think The king is getting brutalized in the center. He will probably have to throw the towel pretty soon, as things are about to get pretty nasty, okay? If you got kids around watching, which you shouldn't, by the way, try to hide them, okay? Try to hide them because this is gonna get graphic, okay? Okay, knight takes on d5. Can't really do much to help my opponent, not like I would. Anyways, just ready to take again, and notice this typical pattern, king and queen lined up on the same file. It's gonna result in, just black losing the queen. And okay, it's really, just remember this was one of your over-the-board games, okay? You play this in a tournament. You're walking down to your hotel room and you're thinking, assuming you can visualize your game, how the heck did I lose? What was the decisive mistake? Because it really doesn't feel like black made any obvious mistakes whatsoever, right? Well, as I told you, while going g5, his only move to kind of stay in the game was knight h5. Anything else is just really borderline losing. As shown by this, our pieces are able to beautifully open up. And thanks to the huge lead in development, black is just in a defenseless position. And he may very well have left the game. Maybe I'm gonna be stuck for here for 2 minutes. I'm gonna edit this part out in case it happens. So, stay tuned. Okay, coming back from the future, my opponent did resign. So we managed to get this one in. Gonna pop in a game review real quick, and okay. I got a 97. That's not too shabby. Okay, that was pretty sweet. The pawn storm is always easy and straightforward, but something that is causing a lot of headaches for the black players is the bishop to b4 pin, and more specifically the upcoming positions where black takes on c3, giving us the double pawns. Okay, take a look at this example. For the untrained eye, this just looks horrible. Or at least that's what I've been telling myself. Until I realized that there is one idea that we can use. There's a tactical trick in the position which could potentially win us the game in only 10 moves. And we actually managed to get it in the following game. Alright everybody, back at it. Back with another game. Gonna be going for Jubao London yet again. What I really love about this opening is that it genuinely works against anything that black plays. More or less. Unless they play some England Gambit or that kind of fuckery. But normally you will be more or less getting a normal game. So, okay, we see e6 by black. The options, knight b5 or e3. I'm going to play the simpler move. I'm going to play e3. This is kind of my main recommendation, especially for beginners. Okay, e3 is easiest to not worry about knight b5 so much. And alrighty, we get a pin. Now, what you definitely want to avoid is playing knight f3. Okay, there is usually, let's say, maybe this common rule for openings to develop knights before bishops. Well, those rules don't really apply that much here because knight f3, knight e4 is very annoying. So, just gonna play bishop to d3, stopping knight e4. Okay. With knight e4, you can at the very least take. Alright, there is bishop takes on e4. Now, additionally, you can also play knight g to e2. In case of knight e4, you can just defend. Now, you don't want to be getting tricked into the mindset of, okay, whenever it's bishop on b4, I gotta play knight e2. Because that is, in fact, a common mistake that I've seen a lot of people making. Right? You only play knight e2 if it's really required. If the knight on c3 needs an ambulance, then knight e2 has to be played. If not, then the knight is way better placed on f3, fighting for the center, and also sometimes can be used for great gift ideas with knight g5 and so on. Okay, c5, threatening c4. So as a rule of thumb, whenever this becomes a threat, you're gonna go dc. And a lot of the times black just takes, and we're gonna transpose to this kind of very typical position where, you're just gonna go knight f3, you're gonna castle, and then you're gonna break with e4. Unless they take on c3. Okay, alright. This is interesting, and we're gonna be probably witnessing a stunning trap, okay? I have some very dirty prep in this position. Let's see. So, as I said, whenever you feel like the c3 pawn needs an ambulance, knight e2 is the move. Expecting queen c5, otherwise it's gonna be playing down a pawn, and I'm gonna castle. And then, expecting castle. And this is the move. Okay? This is just gonna be mind-blowing. Because you never think, oh, I can play c4 in this position. Right? Like, the thing is, you have double pawns, you would love to play c4, and you would love to trade and get rid of one of your bad pawns. But you think, okay, dc4 is a problem, right? Like, not only they take a pawn, but then also the bishop is trapped. Like, isn't that a horrific blunder? Well, that's what it looks like. But we have a very nasty trap prepared. Hopefully he takes, so we can show it. He may play knight c6, just because, I don't know. Okay, he calls in the bluff. Now, you pause the video. What the heck can be the trap? The winning move. Is it the winning move? Am I misplaying this line a little bit? I might be misplaying it a little bit, but I don't think so. I'm just trying to think. I know it's bishop d6. Like, that is the stunning idea. Like, the bishop is immortal. But now I'm just thinking whether my knight should have been on f3. I think this is playable regardless. But I'm just having some second thoughts. Now, the point is, queen takes, there's going to be bishop takes on h7. So we're winning the queen. That is the trick. And I'm just kind of wondering if queen c6 takes on d3. The problem is, if I return with the bishop, he also takes the knight. But maybe there is something that I am missing. I'm pretty sure I have prepared a model game by Daniel Naroditsky for the course. It just could have been with a knight on f3 in a very similar position. But okay, now that he plays it like this, I think we're completely winning. Oh, and we may have been completely winning in the previous one as well. We'll do a little bit of analysis after the game. I'm just like trying to recall things properly. Okay, this is the main line, and now the point is, oh, this looks scary, right? But we're gonna be like, okay, I'm just gonna go back and give my bishop, right? I think a3 is appropriate, safest square. And I'm inviting him to go for the fork, okay? I'm inviting him to do that. Oh no, my rook! So painful. He forked me. Well, you bastard are playing without your pieces. Therefore, this is your punishment. Queen d8, back ranker. Now, was this actually legit? Let's find out. Let's pop in the game review and feel like a total idiot. Okay. What the heck? Let's see. Where did I mess up my prep? Yeah, so presumably it could be queen d2, queen c5, knight f3, castle, knight c6, and then c4. This is the idea that I had, okay? This is the model game that I had in mind. So the point is that after dc4, bishop d6 is winning. Because there is no longer like d takes on e2. So for instance, let's say he plays like in the game, right? Like he goes queen h5, you take. And after cd, you can simply go bishop back and the pawn is no longer eating your damn horse. So this was the problem in the game. But I couldn't resist this idea regardless, because you have just such a nice move, bishop to d6. Okay, I don't care that the opening was not like perfect, but this is a very nice idea to keep in mind, okay? You see these patterns, these typical tactics, even if the position is a little bit different, they can work the same. Forget about the fact that it's losing, okay? It just worked out very well. He had to play... queen c6 wasn't even such a great move as I initially thought. He has to play queen b6 somehow. Give me a break. That's a hard move to find. Because then cd... Yeah, I played the worst move because I allowed queen e2. I am just supposed to take with the queen here because I have queen e8 picking up the bishop. So that would have been better. And would have been better. Like +1. And this... Okay. And this was just c. If he takes with the queen, I gotta take back with a pawn. Play this endgame. I was kind of worse because he has 2 pieces for the rook. But oh boy, this idea, it has to stick in your brain, okay? c4, you wanna trade your bad pawn, open up the position for the bishops, because after dc you have this monster threat. Bishop d6, okay? Put that in your pocket. And let's move on to the following game. Alright everybody, back with another game. I'm gonna open up with d4. Sorry for the sudden background change. I realized the fridge was making some fucking weird noises. Okay, hopefully this background will be better. I mean, you get what I mean. Okay, focusing on the game. Going knight c3, opponent Sandy Seed, 1350-ish. Cat, not a bad rating for a cat. I'm gonna play Jabavalon and let's see how the cat is gonna respond against it. Bishop f5, c5, a6, e6. Those are kind of like the main moves that I am expecting. Also Grunfeld. Grunfeld can be played. Grunfeld kind of rare for this rating range, especially. But we shall see. Okay, am I recording? I am recording indeed. Okay, c5. Alright, out of the pocket. 25 moves, but play c5. Let's see. Kind of interesting time tell already. Gonna play e3, you have to play e3. Okay. Stop going dc5 or knight b5. On 3c5, you have to play e3. Simply because d3, d4 is straight up bad. And knight b5 is not the right timing because the knight is not defended on b5. Meaning that after the check, you have to retreat. That is going to be a bad position because black can destroy your center and so on. So you have to play e3 first. Okay, think about it this way. Okay, c5. You see a pawn on c5 attacking d4. That is pretty much like the control tower of an airport. Okay? The pawn on d4 kind of secures that our pieces have some decent synergy. So you want to play e3, you want to be able to keep this control tower on d4. And then, okay, it's about a matter of finding good squares for our pieces, and my opponent played bishop to f5. Okay, this is going to be an interesting position because already I may have developed your Pavlovian instinct that says bishop f5, f3, g4, boom, pawn storm. That is legit. But you know what is even more legit? Whenever you can get the Excalibur Knight, that is usually going to be the best move. So, knight to b5, threatening a huge fork. Basically, forcing the knight onto the edge of the board because queen a5 is pointless, as after c3, notice why e3 was so important. The knight is indeed covered. And, okay, this is interesting. This position is actually quite tricky, because I can either play simple, or I can even go more aggressive. I can play b4. b4 is a move that a lot of people may not consider, because it just looks like it's plundering a pawn. Hello, dude, are you stupid? Well, the point is that the queen on b4 is going to be a little bit exposed to c3. So then the queen has to move, and then you get your fork. King goes, you take the rook. The problem is that after queen c3 at the end of the line, you get some checks, you get some bits of annoying counterplay that I would rather not allow. Obviously, bishop d2 doesn't work the same, because bishop is no longer supporting the fork. So I'm just going to play c3. And I'm forcing him to essentially go knight a6. Getting us to a typical situation of the Excalibur knight. Okay. Knight to a6 is a must. Now, the main reason why I like to call b5 the Excalibur knight, which is also, we can very much support it with a4, always to make sure it's secured, and okay, sometimes you can even expand. The main reason why I call it Excalibur is that black basically has no way of getting rid of it. And as a rule of thumb, okay, in order to get it properly, it's important that black has pushed c5, or black can no longer kick your knight with c6. Because what most people won't get, they would just try to go for it. Let's say, okay, a pawn storm, right? Like bishop f5, you play knight b5. The main reason why that is not as effective is that after knight a6, play whatever, then they have this c6 move. Okay, getting rid of your knight. So it's not an Excalibur knight right there. Let that sink in. Okay? Important. The little details. So, e6. Getting this position. And okay, now that Excalibur knight is secured, obviously you guys know that it's a reference to King Arthur, that he was the only one who could basically get the Excalibur sword out of the stone, not the snow. Okay, snow would be different movie. Okay, I can do knight f3. I can also storm him. These are the options. Yeah, knight f3, bishop d3. It's still better. It's kind of playing for a tiny edge. Okay, I'm gonna do storm. I'm gonna do the ambitious move. f3. Will he play h5? Kind of doubt. Even if he does, well, maybe then I can just play simple with bishop d3. Okay, he didn't. I'm gonna go d4. And it's a bit of a weird pawn storm. It may look like that because there are no c and e pawns. But still, funnily enough, this is also a position that could have been reached via the traditional move order. Meaning, if black started like this, we played f3, we could have still gotten the same position. I'll show you after the game. So, h4, threatening to trap h5 or h6. It's better for him to do h5. Okay, on h6. Oh man, I'm booked to the teeth here. It doesn't even feel like it's fair. Okay. In this very position, okay, Excalibur knight with pawn storm, it's best to do h5 because we're gonna be just demolishing his king. We're gonna play knight h3, bishop d3, rook g1. I have pretty much I had the same position in the model game that I've prepared for the upcoming Jabava course. This is just so good. Rook g1, bishop d3. He's gonna castle. We're gonna break him with g5. And during this whole time, he's just paralyzed. Like queen b6, what is that even trying to do? Nothing. Okay, he's just a big nothing burger. Okay, similar situation. If I go rook g1, he may never castle. So I may start with bishop d3, just to still hope that he will castle short. Although rook g1 was also playable move. I'm gonna do this. Take with the queen. Oh boy. I feel like this is not fair. I've just been preparing the Jubava so long in the last months that man, sometimes I feel like I want to see a new position and think with my own head, but I just feel like I'm on a perfusion with stockfish. I got engine moves in my blood in these positions. Okay, hopefully they also make some sense. So bishop d3, trying to trade. Bit of a difficult position. He's spending time to think. It's just that thanks to this construction with the Excalibur Knight, his queen side is completely paralyzed. He can never really move this rook, because then a5 and then the pawn on a7 will collapse. So we cannot even do that. And okay, sometimes the only way for them to regroup, like let's say given this position, let me show, it's to castle and then do knight e8 and then do some knight c7 kind of idea. But even that is like not working because of rook g1, g5, and the attack is too strong. So he castles, yeah, I can take, I'm just gonna do rook g1 like I wanted. And okay, g5 should be a huge attack. Bishop d8, trying to play knight c7. That's creative, but it's a little too slow, I would guess, at least. Okay, can I do a5? Queen c6. You have to always check whether you have some quick win like that. G5, knight h5, perhaps only. Kind of annoying idea. I have gh. It has to be crashing. I'm gonna play it. I'm not gonna be overthinking. I've literally placed all my pieces towards that pawn break. Would be kind of hilarious not to do it. Okay. Pawn takes on g5. Gonna take it with a knight. And yeah, preparing to take back on d3 with a queen. Notice that bishop d3, queen d3, h5 will be poisoned, as that would allow mate on h7. So beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. All of our pieces are cooperating perfectly. Bishop to c7. I just wish that we're gonna be able to finish this one properly. Okay, I have a nice line that I'm calculating. Takes, queen c2. Point is to bring the queen on g2 and attack g7. Okay, interesting. Why do I need that precisely? I can also maybe just take and then do queen c2. And then knight f6. Yeah. Knight f6 not very clear. Oh, I have h6 in that position. Okay, this is... Is this it? Oh man. Wish there was just a little bit more time to calculate. Hey. Okay, I'm gonna be keeping it simple. I'm gonna take once, just so that we avoid any weird complications. Now I can take and then queen c2. Can do queen c2 right away. Yeah, probably queen c2 right away. Queen g2, knight h5. Yeah, queen g5 is game there. Okay, at least this is clear enough and straightforward. Has to play the knight, queen g2, he has to take on h5, and then I have queen g5. And he cannot defend the knight. And knight cannot go back because there is mate, so yeah. Okay, pretty nice. Quite happy about this game. If knight e8, h6 is gonna be pretty nice final touch. Can also take and play bishop b5, eliminating the defender. But knight e8, h6 wins, because on g6 we have bishop sack. So, okay, I wish I could have given you that as an exercise, but considering the limited amount of time on the clock. Oh, I didn't see that move coming, but is it changing anything? Just push. h6. No, it's not changing anything. Shit you not. Oh. g6, can we sack? It just feels like we should be able to sack, but I don't quite see it yet. Takes king moves? Crazy. Maybe we cannot sack yet. Has to play g6 and I'm gonna have to castle long, I guess, just to bring more pieces. I can also play king d2, funnily enough. King is well placed in the middle somehow. Just because he doesn't have ways to get to it. Yeah, I cannot sack yet. Weird. I'm gonna castle. Keep it simple. I have to sack. Something really tells me that we need to sack. Okay, going for it. Going for it with no remorse. Okay. h7. I'm just sacrificing the house. Okay, queen h6. Targeting this. Is this total nonsense? Might be. Okay, knight back. I think we should get him. With rook g8. Just a little clearance. Take it. Bring the rook. Down 2 knights, but should be able to get a mate. Check incoming. Check incoming and probably mate. Jesus. This should have been way easier. Okay, king f8 would have been mate, but this is probably on the path of a forcing mate. Check. Yeah, should be forced mate. Check here, I guess, simplest. Check. Man, the king is going for a run. The king's got his running shoes on. Check. King e4, I have rook g4 and mate, luckily. Okay, what a roller coaster. What a roller coaster. Perfect opening, played perfectly. 20 moves when I knew the theory. First thing I had to do, I just blundered like a pig. Well, shout out to my opponent. He defended quite resourcefully, I have to say. Right, everybody. Getting another game with the white pieces. Apparently facing somebody that is a Queen's Gambit fan. I'm not going to be going for the Queen's Gambit. I am going to be playing a bit of a different opening. Probably no surprise by this time. We are going to be getting the starting position for the Jabal Holland, and my opponent is playing this e6 move. Against e6, I used to play knight b5 quite a lot, which is a nice move to play, but I noticed that most people have a bit of a hard time remembering when to play this, so instead I'm gonna stick with the easier move e3. Okay, there are many ways of why it's important to be able to play these variations, simply because our opponent can force us into it with a tricky move order, like if they start with this, bishop f4, bishop d6, or bishop b4, and you can no longer play knight d5. So makes sense to have this as a backup at least. Now, the way the game developed, we're gonna be getting the game into something that I like to call the boa constrictor pawn structure by going knight f3. I came up with that name, took a while to brainstorm. Maybe it's very stupid. You guys let me know in the comments. But the point is that we are letting them take on f4. Okay, I know this maybe looks kind of weird and idiotic at first because we get double pawns, and why the heck do we allow double pawns when you can play something like, let's say, bishop to g3 in that position, right? Well, bishop g3 is good if they take. If they don't, I don't really know how are you going to make use of that move. So I prefer knight f3 and, ooh, my opponent just right away wants to take a bite on f4. Well, the good news is that the f4 pawn is never really weak in the structure because you can simply play g3. Hello, pawn is ultra solid, and the knight will just have to kind of admit and make a shameful retreat back onto f6. So at least maybe this solves one of the worst nightmares of some of you watching, because whenever I'm introducing somebody to this pawn structure, they're a little bit afraid of having such a weak pawn. They call it on f4. But in fact, it's actually a strong pawn because it is very well defended, and more importantly, it's stopping black from ever advancing e5, meaning that in a lot of positions, they are going to be stuck with a bad bishop. So that is why white is better. Therefore, first rule of thumb of the game, whenever you are having the boa constrictor structure, as long as there are bishops on the board, white is going to be better. So, okay. Knight to c6. I can play simple move, castling, could also play knight e5, saying hello to this bastard on h5. But at the same time, I could also consider knight e2. Knight e2 is a typical regrouping move in the Jobava, just preparing to play c3. And, you know, trying to make the bishop safe as it's vulnerable to knight b4. It is what it is. Like, sometimes they can play knight b4 and grab this bishop. It's not really a disaster, I would say. I'm just going to play knight e2, for instance, here. If knight b4, so be it. We're going to play c3 and play that position after knight takes, queen takes. If not, well, I'm going to be very happily keeping this bishop with c3 and bishop d7. Just normal developing move that's common for these players. But what I wanted to actually bring up is the fact that look how horrible the c6 knight is being placed. Okay, because my opponent's basically never gonna be able to get any counterplay with c5, which is kind of like their main move. So instead of developing the knight onto such square, it's usually better for black to organize c5 one way or another, which we normally answer by takes. We don't want to allow c4, obviously, because then the bishop's like a little bit teased out. Now, okay, g6 on the board. How do we proceed? Okay, rook on the open file. Can hardly go wrong with that, and then we're just gonna try to make little improving moves. King to g2 on the agenda. Yeah, just a nice little improving move. I'm not gonna rush. Like, typically you kind of want to get h4 in this structure, but in the same time, you know, imagine you're trying to pet a foreign dog. It's not like you rush to the dog. I mean, you may even get bit. So I'm not gonna play h4 just because I don't want to scare him. Like, what if he wants to castle? If I play h4, he certainly won't. I'm gonna go king g2 in case he goes there. h4 in case he chooses the other side. We're gonna have a different pawn start. So yeah, just kind of waiting to see what he does. Knight e4. I don't think it can really be such an annoying move. Oh, there it is. Hello. Knight e4. Okay. I don't think it's really such an annoying move for many reasons. Long story short, worst case scenario, bishop takes on e4 and then move the knight anywhere. Should be okay. f5, knight c4. Usually that structure is slightly better for white because pawn's a bit weak. Can maybe break with f3 and so on. But you probably came here for the good stuff. So I think it's even better to maybe just play knight d2 right away. I'm considering knight e5, but as you remember, this knight is a little bit dumb, so I don't want to give him the opportunity of trading, even though that would kind of improve our structure. So I am just gonna play knight to d2, knight to g1, bit passive, knight to e5. I guess it works. Kind of hard to decide which one to play. I think I'm just gonna go forward though. Bit of a coin flip decision right there. Probably both were good. I mean, at the end of the day, having these juicy pawns threatening f3 to win the horse, I think it's pretty good. So I don't think he had to take on e5 right away, but the point was to just play f3 and kick him out next move, basically. I'm not gonna leave that knight leave on e4 rent-free, so I'm just gonna tax him immediately. I'm gonna charge him 10x the rent because the knight is now literally trapped. Look how knight g5. We have a pretty good move. Pause the video in case you haven't seen it already. Damn it, Alex Van Zyl, you spoiled the exercise. But h4 indeed traps the horse. And yeah, just a free win. Simple moves. Boa Constrictor. Look how my opponent never really had an active move. Like knight e4 was peak of his activity. His activity is over before it even started. So I'm gonna be collecting the knight, and then the game is gonna just transition into a more conservative phase. Okay, I know maybe some of you just win a knight and then you're ready to try to storm into an attack. No, you gotta chill out. Okay, we're gonna be winning this knight, and then there's gonna be a lot about playing prophylactic moves. Premium words, I know. With that, I mean, we'll try to watch out for my opponent's counterplay. Even though that may be inexistent for the time being, you always want to watch out. You can play knight e4. Could also play queen c1. Like if we trade queens, that is pretty much the end of the game. Kind of resignable for my opponent. I'm gonna start with that just because I want to get you guys into the healthy habit of always offering queen trade while having extra material. So with extra material, even a single pawn, you can start playing like that. I get people ask me, dude, you always say like having an extra pawn is winning, but is it actually winning? Just a pawn? I mean, look how tiny the pawn is. Like, dude, extra pawn. That is just like a huge lead. A lot of people may be underestimating the importance of pawns, so definitely keep an eye on that. And I think we just keep improving. Bishop well placed. Knight is kind of dumb, therefore looking to improve it. I think knight f4 is good. Also, setting up a bunch of interesting threats. Maybe you can go ahead and pause the video now, as I'm not gonna spoil it again. Okay, g5. Double attack. Are we losing? What happened? Did we just blunder? Well, in fact, we have many interesting moves. I don't have a lot of time, so I'm gonna have to shut the hell up and play. Maybe this is interesting, but I'm just gonna take. This was my initial idea. And yeah, just knight e5 looming. I don't think you can really get anything against my king, just because the knight covers g6. Plays h6. Can I go for this? I kind of want to simplify. Knight e5, just because I don't have a lot of time on the clock. I do want to trade, although this is a bit of a mistake, as hell yeah, it's losing a knight. Of course it's a mistake. Maybe I shouldn't just go for flashy tactics. Instead, knight g6 was better, just with similar idea, or queen e5, simple move. Anything was winning there, but of course I just panicked because I saw my clock going under 10 seconds. However, this is gonna get us to a position with hell yeah, still an extra knight. Okay, my opponent blundered back. You'll love to see it. Knight to g6, coming back to e5. I was about to say that we were gonna play an endgame with an extra pawn, which is obviously still very comfortable. I'm gonna show you after the game. But yeah, I had this position in mind. We managed to trade queens, extra piece, knight e5 coming. And yeah, that's pretty much game. The next step would just be to trade rooks. Okay, we're going to be able to force the trade of rooks by infiltrating via the h file. Notice that whenever my opponent will try to avoid trades and keep pieces on the board, he will be kind of forced to concede a lot of squares on the board. So, yeah, at this point, we just started blackmailing him, basically. So, yeah, okay. Opponent pausing a little bit. Bishop c6. Hello there. That's a free rook. Gonna be collecting that, and yeah, rook f3 looks interesting, but problem is I can just go bishop e4, and there will be no discoveries. More so, we are forcing even more trades. And okay, we get a game. Bit of a hiccup right there. Knight takes on d5, minimizing the advantage. Obviously, you can play queen anywhere and be okay. I just forgot that, well, we lost a knight in the process. Happens, right? So, plan was probably to just bring last rook g7, infiltrate, something. Honestly, this doesn't look nearly as winning as it should, but it's still better. You should never blunder knights, kids. Okay. So, key takeaways. You get to see bishop onto d6 early on in the game. Stop playing bishop g3, hoping for the open file that you're not going to always get. And start constructing your opponents. Constricting your opponents. Did I say construct like the whole time? Anyways, go knight f3, allow the double pawns. And yeah. What news? f4 is never weak because you can simply play g3. And then your opponent basically has no active moves. You know, we can just start slowly grinding him down. So, yeah. With that being said, I think we can pretty much move on to the following game. Okay, everybody, back with another game. Let's open it up with d4. And gonna be going for starting position of the Jubava. I love to see that already most of the players around like 1300 play very normal stuff. So just gonna be going f3. When you're playing against the bishop onto f5, it is gonna be time to launch the pawn storm. We're gonna be going f3 pretty much, starting this chain reaction. Okay, g4, target the bishop, go h4. Already threatening to trap this little guy, and opponent has a choice. He plays h6. In case of h5, remember to go g5. Okay, they attack your pawn, you push, targeting this knight, and then pretty much the game is very similar to what you normally do on h6. So against both lines, you play e3, bishop d3. In both cases, if they go bishop d6, what do you think we should play? And let me give you a hint, okay? When you're playing the pawn storm, you always want to be able to take back on f4 with a knight. Okay, so you have alternatives. Knight e2 or knight h3. In this very scenario, if bishop lands on d6 early, you want to play knight h3. Oops, damn it, I cannot draw arrows. Simply because you want to do bishop d3. You don't want to be blocking the bishop with knight to e2. That's the trick. On c5, we're going to be playing bishop d3, of course, very normal move, right? No, okay? That is a very common mistake because you're not paying attention to your opponent's moves. Okay, c5 is a huge mistake in these positions because it allows the Excalibur knight. Also, c5, most common move in the position as well. Allowing knight to b5, pretty much forcing our opponent to play knight a6 because the check is simply useless, as there is simply c3. Okay, he went cd4. For some reason, he just panicked and he was like, oh, I'm just gonna take a pawn. He's like, I'm getting forked, at least let me take. You know what I mean? Well, I can take, but I can also fork. And I want you to pay very close attention to the next move because this is gonna completely change your perspective about this scenario. Because after knight c7, it's very, simple to go high dopamine move, and then you're gonna be like, "Whoa, I'm gonna be taking that rook. I have to take that rook." You can do that, but it is not like the rook is really running anywhere. And in a lot of positions, like let's say you take the rook, the knight is gonna get trapped, and then he takes on e3. Other times you have played c3, he takes there, allowing unnecessary counterplay. So considering the fact that the rook is trapped, we can definitely make a quick pause and secure your center with ed4. Okay, that is very important, and this way you're just gonna keep it very straightforward. Okay, takes. If he gives up the queen for 2 pieces, so be it. We're going to be completely winning regardless. Okay, he just checks me. I'm going to block the check, obviously. And then we are going to be picking up that rook. Okay? Alright. Now, still, I have a few tips for you. Because this is common. Okay, you're playing the Jubava. You either get the Excalibur knight, then they blunder. They may blunder also right away. You get to this position. Now, a very common mistake is that a lot of players really try to rescue this knight. No, you have taken that rook, you can literally forget about that knight and start to focus on your development. Okay, bishop d3. I don't give a damn about the knight. We have taken a rook, we're already ahead. The only thing that we need to do from now on is play conservative chess. Just try to keep the position solid and initiate trades. Okay, you can make the argument, but isn't the enemy king quite weak? Yes, it is. We can play for an attack if, let's say, it's easy. But it's also not the main thing to keep an eye on. It's like, we could trade queens. We'd much rather trade queens in these positions other than dreaming of an attack. So yeah, I can castle. However, in the Jubava, king f2 is usually better than castling. It's kind of similar, it's just that you need the rook a lot of the times for the attack. It's not like I'm attacking here, but I want to create this healthy habit for you. Whenever you play the pawn storm, king f2 is better than short castle. Castling long, I guess, was a move as well. I just felt like we could use these pawns to push, so it felt a bit more appropriate to have king on f2. Maybe that's a small inaccuracy on my end. However, I do believe that both are fine. Okay, now, we're in an interesting situation where the knight is not ideally placed, so we don't have obvious way to break. And I don't want to play b4, because after bishop b6, he will have maybe e5 ideas. So I'm going to play queen e3. I told you knight is bad. Before you rush with, let's say, pawn break, you gotta optimize your pieces. So now that I give you a little bit of a hint with queen e3, you have to find the best way to improve this horse. Okay? And I want you to remember this, because it's quite standard for the Jubava. You can improve the e2 knight by going knight c1, and now knight to d3. From where it can go to either c5 or e5. Oops. Let me highlight that. And also, it can very well just sit there. Limit my opponent's counterplay. Imagine we go knight d3, b4, a4. Yeah, like attacking that hook. And this is a very important maneuver. Okay? I feel like this game is so instructive that I am double checking to see if the recording is working properly. That's how much I don't want to miss this game. Knight on d3. Beautiful knight. Best square for the knight in this. Kind of like a Carlsbad structure in a way, except you have the pawn push. I don't want to confuse you with too many names though. So, okay. Knight a5. Quite often whenever they do something like this, you think, oh, knight c4 is coming, this is very scary, I'm gonna play b3, just stop that. Okay, I understand b3 is a reasonable move, but you wanna make sure you remember that whenever the knight makes such move, it's no longer controlling the center. So look at that, knight e5, he could trade. Knight a5, I can literally just sit on this square completely rent-free, and this is no longer a problem because I can easily take. If I want to, okay, maybe I don't. Maybe I do something else. Maybe I play b3 now, and I made his knight passive. His knight cannot go back anymore. I can go a4, knight c4, takes. I'm like a bit skeptical about this because I'm giving him dc and then knight d5 is quite a nice square for the knight, so I am just gonna play b3 regardless, but including knight d5, definitely to our advantage. Having a4 ideas at some point. Okay, he plays knight d7. I mean, I can trade. I mean, I also don't have to do anything whatsoever. I can play rook e1, setting up a nice little trap. What it's actually quite nice to see is the fact that, well, where is my opponent gonna castle? Will he go short? That feels like entering the jungle for him. The jungle of pawns. In case he was not taking, I was gonna be playing a very nice move next, so you can try to pause the video and find the winning tactic. Imagine black does nothing. Okay? We would have had knight takes on f7. King takes, queen e6, only move, king f8, and the deadly check, bishop to d6. Opponent has to block with a queen and then it's just over. However, on takes, taking with the bishop seems very nice. Taking with the queen, offering queen trade also, okay, but yeah. Prefer this. He'll probably play castle, then I want to go g5. He was too afraid, of course. It was very scary indeed. By the way, I don't have a lot of time on the clock, so I believe this is an increment game. I'm just gonna go, yeah. I'm gonna go maybe king g2. Yeah, this is an increment game indeed. Or I've simply lost on time if there was no increment. So I'm getting 5 seconds each move. Before you try to learn any openings, my best advice for you would be to be aware of the time control that you're playing. That can definitely get out of hand if you're not careful. f4, f5 would be a simple plan. I'm gonna get my bishop out of the way. I feel like the bishop kind of achieved its goal of like making him lose the right of castling, and then the weakness starts to be e6. Wants to play b4 though, undermining, so I'm gonna push in myself. That was important idea, because if I take, then d4 is weak, so b4. Bit of a prophylactic move right there. And yeah, now that the weakness is e6, I don't think it's a crime against chess to play f4. Temporarily weakening the bishop, but don't know, that is, what is that trying to do? I'm gonna go f5. If he takes, I got rook e2. Easy block. Yeah, easy block. It took with a check, so I had to block. And yeah, next move, fe. Starting to open him up. He can still block. Would be very, you know, not clever, but necessary at this point for him to block. Expecting queen c4 and then f6. Not sure exactly how to proceed there. Maybe it's time to switch onto the a file. Rook a1. There's a target on a6 to play for. This has to be played, otherwise we open him up decisively. Rook a1, picking up the pawn. As I mean, he can play queen c8, but I can double up, and his rook is not really able to do anything. It's just a spectator to a bad movie. Okay, it's not even a movie that he enjoys. So yeah. I'm gonna play pretty quick. We'll give him that. But not very good. Rook a2, about to take on a6. Okay, this game started, or at least it seemed in the beginning like there's gonna be a very easy, effortless wins. But I have to be honest, we had to find a few moves. Like, he played pretty well after the blunder. It's kind of strange, kind of, you know. Whenever somebody blunders in this elo, it usually just goes downhill. this guy played pretty good and pretty quick. So kudos to him. He is fighting well, but now his position is, I think, about to collapse. Just because my rooks are about to infiltrate. Which is gonna be game over. But yeah, I hope you remember that little detail in the beginning when you get the fork. I know the rook is very tempting, but you know, you can wait for like a little bit just to avoid any unnecessary complications. Okay. Yeah, this pressure. Okay, it also happens to be a threat, so yeah. I can take this, but better to take that, not to activate his queen. Queen still on the back ranker. Now we have a clean piece. Last step would be to bring my queen into the attack. D3 will be nice. Targeting G6 as well. That's a nice little multi-purpose move if we are allowed to. Probably will be. Not much to do for black to stop it. Okay, G6. Wow, that's a move. Okay, just good take. I'm gonna play Queen F4 though. Do I play Queen F4? Yes. Queen E6. I have mate on B8, and I'm also just preparing to kind of infiltrate. I can also trade queens. Can also take there. Way too many friends at this point. And same problem. Rookie is just spectator for a horrible movie. Queen to D6, threatening to mate. Queen to D8, but that would be trapping his own king in the mating net. Because I'm not even going to trade at this point. I am just going to play Queen C6 and he has no more moves. But to block with the queen, thus leading to checkmate, so... Okay, pretty straightforward. I would say like a relatively clean game overall.